It's hard to look around a paddock at a racetrack and find someone who is not a gearhead. And with a packed house at Austin's Circuit of the Americas, it seems they've all descended for the action for this SRO America weekend. One of the spectacles for fans here this weekend is the running of GT1 Sports Club, a selection of some of the most spectacular cars on the planet driving on track at speed. Somewhere between abstract art and engineering, we're about to watch Pagani's, Koenigsegg's, Ferraris, and more. And we'll have the pleasure of listening to the soundtrack as well. Hi, everybody. Kyle Heyer, joined by DJ Clark on this beautiful Sunday morning. And the sights and sounds of GT1 Sports Club back again for a handful of sessions today, DJ, and yesterday. Man, we got to see some cool cars. We're going to get to see them all over again.
Yeah, we certainly did. And one of the chief ones that you're going to be looking at here as they come down the back straightaway, a pair of Lamborghini Huracan STOs as well as Ferrari. We've got everything you can imagine out on the track. It's going to be really, really spectacular to see. We're going to give you plenty of time to be able to hear the beautiful orchestra of these engines. Going to definitely make sure that they're there in that case. And also going to give you plenty of time to just enjoy these cars.
Yeah, some of these cars are extremely rare. The Apollo IE, which we hopefully will see on track later in this session, is one of 10. And they're not making them anymore. They only made a handful of them, and they're incredibly unique cars, and I'm sure there's a handful of others we'll get to talk about as well. But you pointed out these Lamborghini Huracan STOs, that V10 symphony that we always talk about, with those naturally aspirated V10 engines, just synonymous with Lamborghinis over the course of their racing history and their road car history.
Yeah, and these in particular designed to model after the Super Trofeo sports model that we normally see in this Super Trofeo series. You can tell that by the air scoop on the back that is there, and as we talked about yesterday, with this mid-engine design, the front hood of the car has a space that is specifically designed for your racing paraphernalia. So any of your shoes or your helmet or your gloves or your racing suit, anything like that, these are for the most part, specifically these Lamborghini Huracan STOs, as well as the majority of the cars, these are not your average cruiser. They are not what we would call a supercar that you can go out on a Friday night and cruise down the block and say, hey, I'm looking cool in this car. These cars are made for one purpose and one purpose alone. That's exactly what you're seeing right now, and that is to tear up a track.
Yeah, I think a lot of these cars are designed, you know, we talked yesterday about no compromises, right? They're all for performance. Of course, we're going to see some cars that might have some compromises in the form of comfort as well, but you're certainly getting a value with cars like Lamborghini Huracan STO, and I can't imagine how much fun it is to rip one of these things around Circuit of the Americas, especially on a race weekend with so many spectators. They get to see these cars up close in the paddock as well.
Yeah, exactly, and these cars are on display. You can check them out. As you've got a couple of more working their way down the backstretch. This is the Ferrari, or just Ferrari, excuse me, my American comes out there as I want to say the Ferrari. It is Ferrari, singular. A very, very special car when we talk about it. This is part of the sort of hybrid hypercar trifecta that was thrown around for a while with McLaren and Porsche, this being Ferrari's model. And as we mentioned yesterday, called Ferrari because it is intended to be the definitive Ferrari. It is a hybrid using an internal combustion engine as well as a hybrid battery system to deliver an absolutely incredible amount of power down, looking at near 950 horsepower.
And that's an incredible number, but also this is the Aperta model that has the open top as well. So not only do you have over 900 horsepower at your disposal, you also have the raw, open top sports car experience. I think that it's part of the drama of having a Ferrari and really experiencing all the sensations that you're supposed to get while driving some of the best cars on the planet.
Exactly, and a lot of these models, we're going to talk about them in broad strokes, and then we'll kind of go into the details. I love that. That shows you how hard he's pushing. Those hazards coming on there, that is an indication from the car saying, hey, you're braking too fast. Yeah, that is an indication to show the other drivers on the road that there is a sudden stop coming up. That means that they are pushing this car and doing exactly what it was designed to do.
And the passenger in the right seat has the cell phone, which I'm speaking from experience. That video will get watched a lot, even though it's extremely shaky. So it's really fun to watch it. And you pointed out, at the limit on the brakes, certainly one of the things to consider is, even though these cars are, in some cases millions of dollars and have extremely high performance limits, they're still on road tires for the most part as well. So you have to consider that around the racetrack. It's relatively cool this morning, so grip levels are up. But some of these drivers are really getting after it, including the drivers in these Lamborghini Huracan STOs.
Well, as you mentioned, it's a good time to be able to do that. With track temperatures being a little bit on the cooler side, it's going to allow you to push a little bit more. Even if you are on these street tires, it's going to be grippier. You're going to have more mechanical grip at your disposal, and you're going to be able to push a little bit more. And I think yesterday we saw some of the drivers maybe not going as fast as they would anticipate, but we've got to remember that these are million-dollar cars, and also in some cases they are quite truly one of a kind, or one of 10 in the world.
Gosh, the soundtrack of that V10, every time it drives by a camera, it just has one of the best sounds that you could imagine. And even the downshifts. Oh, it's such a great sound. Into turn 11 and then throttling up on this extremely long back straightaway. And this is really where you can explore the top speeds of these cars, in most cases over 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, and this is about 0.62 miles of back straightaway, so it's really going to give you an opportunity to stretch the car's legs, get that full engine up to chat, and to be able to feel it. And then you're going to take use of the aerodynamics on all of these cars, because we have to remember these are all modern hypercars, so they are very, very aero sensitive. You're going to see those big diffusers, you're going to see those big rear wings on the cars, and more importantly, more crucially, you're going to see sculpting of the body, and that's what's done with the Lamborghini Huracan. That is done with, I believe that's the McLaren Senna in particular, coming out of pit.
This looks to be the Apollo IE, I believe, DJ. So
I believe you're right. Yep. Yes, it is.
So this is a really cool car if you've not seen one of these before. The Apollo Intensa Emozione, I just butchered that, but it's a mid-engine rear-drive hypercar. It's got a 6.3-liter V12, very similar to the engine that's actually in that LaFerrari Aperta, and a 6-speed sequential transmission. It weighs 2,756 pounds, but the crazy stat about the Apollo IE, DJ, is the chassis is made almost entirely out of carbon fiber. The chassis itself, take all the bodywork away, take the engine out, the chassis itself only weighs 231 pounds.
Yeah, I was just looking at that stat myself. Absolutely incredible. And really and truly, when you look at some of the design elements of this car, it is made to operate under maximum efficiency. For example, the engine bay is actually left uncovered to allow for as much air intake as possible and to shave that weight as much as they can. Special tires are put onto this car that are specifically made for hypercars such as this. It's really, really impressive stuff. And once again, we talk about that sculpting of the body. You can see all of those sort of louvers and air channels and all of that. That's not just to make it look like a Batmobile. That is actually designed to be able to generate as much downforce as possible, pushing that car into the track.
I think what's fascinating about... I had to stop there for a moment. What's fascinating about cars like this, and this is true of the of LaFerrari, it's true of Ford GT, it's true of the Jaguar XJ220. It's the non-compromise approach to building a car, and because it's your crown jewel car, it's the car to end cars, right? You're going to learn so much because the budget, it's a blank check to design and develop these cars, right? You're not really looking at getting your money back in development. So what you end up with is cars that look like this, because every bit of CFD that you can run, every ounce of engineering you can put into this from an engineering perspective, the CAD, all of this ends up with a very purposeful looking machine. But it has almost like a honeycomb look to it, doesn't it? It's very geometric in that way. I think that's very cool.
Well, and I think it shows you some of the different design philosophies when it comes to designing these cars. I didn't mean it in a strange way. I didn't mean it in a joking manner when I say it kind of does look like a Batmobile. Like, I'd expect Bruce Wayne to pop out of that kind of car here at this point. But once again, that is all done in order to channel that air, and that's the way they have it look. It's not necessarily that they wanted to make it look that way. That is the way to maximize aerodynamic efficiency.
The sound of this car is unbelievable. Just listen to this. That is an insanely awesome sound. Yeah. I mean, I think I got chills when the pops and crackles happened through turn 2, but that's all part of this, right? I mean, there's a performance aspect to it, but there's also an emotion aspect tied to it as part of the name of the Apollo IE, the IE standing for effectively intense emotion, right? And when you have a sound like that, it's part of that visceral experience that that draws everybody to cars. And talk about poster cars you had on your wall as a kid. I think there's probably some kids going home after this weekend that'll put this picture on their wall. Yeah,
I certainly think there will be. And you know, what's incredible about this car, we talked about that engine note. That's a 6.3-liter Ferrari derived engine. It's a V12, and so you get that sort of scream of yesteryear. This is a little bit of that. Let's listen to it again as it comes down the straightaway here.
Yeah, the flyby. I mean, come on, let's be real. That's probably one of the best sounding cars I think I've ever heard in my life. But they got Miller Motor Cars helping them out here this weekend. The Apollo IE on course right now, and we didn't see a lot of this car on course yesterday, so it's good to see it making some laps here and letting that Ferrari V12 really sing. I think you know, that's the old Italian tune-up, right? Take it all the way to the top of the rev range and let it scream.
You know, you can have your Pavarotti, you can have your Pagliacci, but I will gladly take a Ferrari V12. That is exactly what I want to see. And for anybody listening there, I know Pagliacci is an opera and Pavarotti is a tenor. I was mixing metaphors. I apologize.
Over my head. So I'm a car guy, DJ.
I did have a music time in my life.
So interestingly, now it's this Apollo IE is catching up to the, again, not the, but La Ferrari, and with fairly similar engines under the rear covers here. The notes should be similar, but of course, the way that each manufacturer has gone about designing the car is quite different. I think La Ferrari has come down the pit lane.
Yeah, that's what it looks like here at this point. La Ferrari headed down into pit lane as it goes, and the Apollo IE continuing out on the track here at this point, working their way around. And one of the things that really impresses me about this car is the acceleration on this. From that V12, we're talking about a 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. Absolutely remarkable. And it's capable of 208 miles an hour. That is what it is. And then when we talk about downforce, it's roughly a 3,000 pounds of downforce pushing down onto the car. It is absolutely remarkable. Again, this is a high-performance hypercar. This is absolutely top of the range. Every single part of this car designed to go fast.
Well, $2.6 million cost as well. But here's another interesting bit about this car, and we noted the Italian-sourced engine, but Apollo partnered with a German company, HWA AG, which is a tuning spinoff from AMG, to help develop this car, which I think is intriguing. So it's a bit of an amalgamation of different minds and engineers from across the world to create, I think, what could be considered the apex of automotive enthusiasm with this car.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very fantastic to be able to see as they go here at this point. And it works its way down the back straightaway right now. Again, pushing its way along. This car weighs just under 3,000 pounds, by the way. I mean, this is a light car as well. You mentioned earlier carbon fiber, aluminum, and titanium built all into it. It is done with absolutely no expense spared to make this as light and as fast as possible.
And I think it's intriguing to me as well. You know, we mentioned the German influence in some of the tuning and design. Of course, the Ferrari-sourced power plant, but of course Apollo putting all of these parts together into what is one very cohesive package. And what's so fascinating about that is you've got minds and engineers from every corner of the earth communicating together to create something special. So that's very, very cool. Those Lamborghini Huracan STOs working their way now through the stadium section. And while that V12 makes a great engine note, so does this V10, as we talked about earlier. You know, we've seen this running in our SRO Motorsports paddock before. It's currently, you know, obviously still in Europe as well. There are a couple Audi R8s that run in our paddock that share a similar engine note, and one of my favorites here in this race weekend.
Yeah, it really does. It has that distinctive Italian flair to it. As we take a look here at the KTM Crossbow, also working its way around. Another one of those cars that it certainly has a GT2 pedigree to it as they come down into pit lane.
Yeah, and again, there's a couple different configurations of the KTM Crossbow GT2, but I believe that is the 5-cylinder variant. I believe it's an Audi-sourced 5-cylinder. Very unique car in that case, but up the straightaway goes the Lamborghini Huracan STO towards that big American flag off in turn 1. Part of the spectacle here at Circuit of the Americas. Watch that car on the brakes, and we'll listen to it accelerate off of turn 1. And then down the hill. And let's have a listen to this Lamborghini Huracan STO. That car makes some great noises, doesn't it, DJ?
It certainly does. And a nice little 11 being put down there by the KTM Crossbow as they make their way out onto the circuit as well. They got to be a little bit careful. I think they crossed over the line there at that point. Yeah. Race control may have a look at that.
Yeah, you saw him turn towards it. Oh, they told us not to do that. But yep. Out to the S's now. The Crossbow GT2 works its way into the S's, and you know, one of my favorite things about listening to distant cars working their way around a race course, you heard it come over the crest at turn 10, and you hear the buzz of the rumble strips as well, echoing into the distance, really getting after it there. There's the Apollo IE back on track again, accelerating out onto the course.
Yeah, and this is coming down through turn 1 and 2, and this is where one of the areas that this Apollo IE will really shine again with that sculpted body around it. And I think, Kyle, we haven't given this car its due. Let's give us a nice little soundtrack here. Enjoy the sounds of this Apollo IE.
what a sound out of that V12 engine, especially on the flyby down the straightaway, and then as the revs climb back up on the downshifts into the braking zones. That is a visceral experience, I'm sure, inside the car, and a fun one outside. So this is the KTM Crossbow GT2. Of course, we have seen this GT2 variant of this car in the GT America powered by AWS series, DJ. This car has run, not this particular car, but a car very much like it, has run as recently as the Indianapolis event a couple of months ago at the tail end of last season. And one of the unique features about this car is the clamshell nose, or I guess the cockpit comes up, it folds forward, and you get into and out of it almost like an alien spaceship. I think that's so cool. And it's probably all part of the, you know, when you shift around how you get in and out of the car, it probably is going to allow you to design the car differently, shift some weight around a bit, but certainly a unique experience, I'm sure, to climb in and out of this machine.
Yeah, certainly so. And you see it does have windows that are kind of poppable there at that point. That window kind of cracked open in the distance. Not sure if he maybe forgot to close that, or maybe it is a little toasty. It's a hot Texas day, so maybe he's just trying to get a little extra air.
I think it's got AC in the car. It is a race car, so, and some race cars now do have AC, but...
Well, but I will say the other flip of that is if you look at some of the cars that we've seen over the course of this weekend, there are cars that, in order to be able to maximize the speed in the car, to strip away weight and to not lose any power, they will abandon those creature comforts like satellite navigation, like a heads-up display on the dash like we're used to normally seeing, or even air conditioning in order to achieve maximum power.
Yeah, and this car, of course, you see it now really hustling through the S's here at Circuit of the Americas. Like we said, this is really a race car through and through. It's competed in the GT America powered by AWS series because it is a GT2 classified car here in the SRO. So it's a relatively new classification that allows a lot more horsepower, but you're pulling back the aero a bit from what would, you know, a GT3 machine. So you create speed in different ways. But there is also another GT2 car in the paddock if you check things out here at the racetrack. So very interesting cars. The Apollo IE fires up again for the run down the front straightaway and up, climbing a couple hundred feet into that first corner.
Yeah, blind first corner here at this point. It's so difficult to sight. But again, the downforce on this car not only going to help it maneuver around the corners as it looks like we're really starting to get this car to run through its paces, it's also going to help it stop. Because you've got that force pushing the car down, it's going to kind of use gravity against its own self as you go up that first corner.
I was talking earlier about some of the cars that were running on, you know, effectively street tires. Obviously, they're very wide and very sticky, you know, race compound tires that are still probably DOT legal. But this car, I believe, has slicks on it right now. So it is definitely going to have a lot of mechanical grip in addition to the aerodynamics that you already talked about, generated by the floor, the diffuser, that large rear wing, and of course the front splitter as well, all channeling air in a very purposeful manner to help this car stick to the road. And I've heard people call it false grip. The faster you go, the more effective that aerodynamic force is. And when you slow down, in many cases, you can watch the car actually lift up off the ground a bit because it's no longer being pressed into the ground. It's like an airplane wing, right? Airplane wings make you go up. If you flip it up and tack it to the back of the car, it'll stick it to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect way to think about it and to describe it. So Apollo now flies its way down the back straight. That thing just sounds so good. It really and truly does. And let's watch it here into this braking zone. You can see the car kind of pitch forward a little bit. Now that is obviously, when we talk about aerodynamics, that is a little bit of the bane of the existence of engineers, because you don't want that car to pitch forward or to roll from side to side. You want a stable, consistent platform. So technology developed from open wheel series that a lot of times in these cars, they will have something called active suspensions, that the suspension will actually fluctuate its stiffness and its bounciness in order to keep as stable of a platform as possible.
Yeah, the balance between compliance and also keeping all your aero from stalling is one of the, you know, the long challenges of motor racing. But this Apollo IE, what an excellent display that was, up and down the straightaways there and hustling through the corners at times. Looks like it's cooling things off a bit. But I think my favorite part about this car is that Apollo went out and found all of, you know, it's called the Apollo Intense Emotion, effectively. They went out and found the most, probably one of the best sounding engines you could possibly get. They went and found one of the best tuning organizations you could possibly get, and some of the best engineering teams that you could possibly get, and they just stuck all the best things together into what is now a pretty cohesive car. Now, again, one of 10 on Earth.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I could list any other objects I know that there are less than 10 of. Right? I mean, that's the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Other than, like, the 7 wonders of the world. But, of course, we're going to get to see these cars a few more times this weekend and get to listen to them as well. But it has been a pleasant morning here. But GT1 Sports Club from Circuit of the Americas, all part of a spectacle here on an SRO Motorsports America weekend. A few more sessions of GT1 Sports Club later today.
Bespoke, bold, and blisteringly fast. The BMW XM, the most powerful production BMW ever. The perfect fusion of iconic handling and cutting-edge sophistication. Experience the next level of driving.